Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Podcast with yours truly, Jack Bosch. Today, we are going to cover a basic principle of land flipping, and that is the first question is, why land? So stay tuned, and I'll share with you all the secrets of why land is better than houses.
Welcome to the Forever Cash Life Real Estate Investing Podcast with your hosts, Jack and Michelle Bosch. Together, let's uncover the secrets to building true wealth through real estate and living a purpose-driven life.
All right, so here we are. Land. Why land? Well, very simple. It's the year 2020, and real estate is hot, right? Everywhere you see, there's like announcements and there's seminars and everyone is making money in real estate. But the little hidden secret of this thing is that at the same time, there is a ton of competition in real estate, right? So you see all these flip this show and flip this thing out there and so on. And what you see is people that only share with you that little picture of their reality, right? They share you like an inch or 2 inches of their reality. They show you like a house when they got it under contract, and then they're going to go do the rehab. They don't show you how many expenses were there more than expected. They don't show you where they have the money from to actually buy those pieces of real estate, right? If they're buying a $500,000, or let's just say $150,000 house, and they're putting $75,000 into that thing, and then to make it $225,000, and then they sell it for $300,000. They don't share with you. What they show you on the television is they say like bought for $150,000, put in $75,000, sold for $300,000, meaning a profit of $75,000. That is not the truth. That is not the truth. What they didn't share with you is how they actually had to probably have a room full of people working the phones, cold calling seller after seller in order to get those deals. But they didn't share with you how they probably had to send out 20,000 mail pieces for every house deal that they got in order to get that deal. What they didn't share you how they had to basically have an acquisitions manager and they call them salespeople, but they're really acquisition people. To buy these properties in the first place, right? And how those guys get like a few $1,000s, plus they get a base salary. How they cost money to get all these sent out 20,000 letters or postcards. Going to cost them like $6,000 to $8,000 to send that out. How the acquisition cost of a deal is easily for these house flippers $10,000. Then they don't share with you where they get the money from to do the deal. If they needed $225,000, well, guess what? Most people don't have that money, so they get it from a hard money lender. So the hard money lender is going to charge them like 2 or 3% upfront, which is something like $6,000 upfront, or $4,000 to $6,000 just in fees. And then they're going to charge them something like a 12% interest rate, which basically is another $2,200 a month on that deal. So if they take them 3 months, 2 months to fix the deal, 1 month to sell the deal, and then another, let's say 30 days to close on the deal, that's 4 months, that's another $8,000 to $9,000. That's about $9,000 in this deal in extra cost. So now if you're looking at that, you have mailing costs and like acquisition costs of about $10,000. You have disposition costs, like holding costs of another almost $10,000. And then you have a realtor that they usually hire. And the realtor sells it perhaps as a discount fee for just 2%, but often there's a buying realtor. And the buying realtor will also get 3%. So now it's a 5%. Now 5% of a $300,000 sale is how much? Oh, that's another $15,000. So now we are at $35,000 in actually holding costs that goes away when you sell it that way. So now when you sell this property for $300,000, and it's that $75,000 turns into $40,000. And what they also don't tell you is how they have to go compete, like get the contractors, how they have to supervise them all day long, how they have to run around like crazy, how it's become a full-time job getting that thing fixed. So now with that said, $40,000 in a 4-month period is certainly not bad, particularly if you have the ability to do multiple of those things. But what they don't tell you is that flipping houses is freaking hard, right? Because there's a lot of competition. You got to fight against all these other people that come out of seminars and even the professionals and so on, and all these different things that you've said. So now let's compare to that land flipping. Land flipping is a concept that Michelle and I have discovered and professionalized and optimized and perfected over the last 17 years, basically. And we found this out back in 2002 when we also wanted to get into real estate. And in 2002 was very similar to today. There was a lot of competition. There was a lot of people dealing in houses, and we just couldn't get a deal, right? We found one deal that was a triplex in a bad area of town. That's why we got it, because nobody else was wanting to get in there, apparently. We got that deal under contract for $45,000. We thought it was worth about $80,000 and $90,000. We only marked it up $5,000. We wanted to do what's called a wholesale deal. Did you put a deal under contract? You pass it right away on to another deal, to another buyer, and they do the rehab. Well, little did we know that we had misestimated all the repairs, because we back then didn't know anything about real estate. Now that's 17, 18 years ago. Since then, we've done 4,000 land deals. We've owned 400 apartment units. We own rental houses. We own commercial property. We own a hotel. We own all kinds of stuff. So we have now obviously learned the tricks of the trade in abundance. And we keep learning, by the way. It's never ending learning, right? In 2019, we learned a whole bunch more about different areas of real estate in subject matters that we were not yet experts in. So it's a never-ending story. Real estate is an industry. It's not a method. Real estate is an industry, and within that industry, you choose your method. So what we chose was land flipping, or we stumbled into land flipping, because here's what happened with land flipping. So our very first deal, we ended up finding people that didn't want their properties anymore, so much that they had stopped paying property taxes. So we also thought, okay, it might be a good idea to send them a letter, because if they have stopped paying property taxes, and it's still like a year or 2 years before their property gets foreclosed on for non-payment of property taxes, or before it goes up for auction, perhaps they're wanting to sell a property prior to that to us. So we sent about 400 letters out, and we got about 20 phone calls. And the funny thing is that out of these 20 phone calls, every single one of them was a landowner. By the way, what happened with that triplex is we couldn't sell it, because we had misallocated or miscalculated all the repairs. It was not a deal, and so we basically let that deal go. So then we reset, and we did what I just said. We went into the tax delinquent space, but with direct mail, and we got a great response rate. Our first response rate was like something like 5 or 6%, and then since then we have had many times response rates of over 10%. Again, compared it to the house world, they often nowadays in the current competitive situation, people are lucky if they get better than half of 1% response rates in the house world. We're still getting 4 to 15% response rates on our letters and our mailers. It's a crazy world, because in land there's very little competition. But here's what happens. One of the people had a property in a smaller town in northern Arizona. I live in Arizona, so we started in our backyard for no other reason than we thought back then that we needed to go see the property. Now we buy properties from Hawaii all the way to Florida. We don't ever go see properties, because there's no need to go see properties. It's just land. You have Google Maps, you have Google Earth, you have all these different softwares that you can use to look at the properties. And what's the difference between an aerial picture from last year and from this year is that the trees grow by that much. Other than that, there's really not much of a difference. So we wrote those letters. We got 20 phone calls, and they were all land. And one stands out because he accepted our offer. He was this guy with an acre property in northern Arizona, with a house on one side, a house on the other side, and the lot right there. And he was okay. He wanted to kind of move away from the state. He had just gotten to divorce. He didn't want to deal with things anymore. And he was willing to give that property to us for $400. $400. Now, not a $400 down payment or escrow deposit for a $400,000 purchase with a bunch of rehabs and stuff. No. Fully purchased of the property is $400 plus closing costs. Now, in this case, we actually did the closing ourselves. We didn't even hire a title company. We just did a title search. We figured out who owned this property for him, and then before, and then we just paid him $400 and sent him a deed. He signed it, sent it back to us, and we sent the deed for recording. And then when we went out there, we put a for sale by owner on the sign on there, and the neighbor from across the street comes up and right there on the spot makes us an offer for $4,000. Now, that's not a $40,000 profit, just like I just explained in the house flipping side. but it was a $4,000 profit. But compare the amount of effort that was included. If we would have gone with and gotten the title insurance for it, it would have cost us another $600-700. So let's say we would have been in for $1,000, and we sell the property for $4,000. They paid all the closing costs on their end, so we would have made $3,000 in basically like what? By sending out a few letters, talking to a few people, and sending out a few offers, and then they're agreeing to our offer. That's really it. And then driving up there and putting up a sign on the property, which is what we did back then. Now it's even easier. You post these properties on many social media platforms. So with that said, we started, oh, well, that was easy. Plus, were there any risk of us losing money? No. But if you buy something for $400 that's worth $8,000, because that's the true value of the property was about $8,000, we're like in for 5 cents on the dollar. I mean, the worst case scenario we told ourselves is that we're going to go make $1,000 on that property, right? But we made $4,000, so we had $3,600. We 10x'd our money, right? And then the next deal came along, which just 2 weeks later, from that same batch of letters, there was somebody that owned 40 acres and was willing to get rid of that property for $500. $500 for 40 acres. Of course, it's not 40 acres in downtown Phoenix. It's not 40 acres in downtown LA. It's 40 acres like in a rural area, a few hours outside of town. But come on, based on an estimate, this property was worth $20,000. So for $500, guess what? We're $20,000, $2,000 would be 10%, $1,000 would be 5%. We're in it for 2.5 cents on the dollar. 2.5 cents on a dollar. Now that's not necessarily typical. Usually nowadays we're in it anywhere between 10 and 30% or 10 and 25% of market value. But those were the first couple of deals, and we sold that property for $10,000 with a $9,500 profit, or online in 10 days, and had multiple people fight over that property. So now, and then, for example, another deal we did is a property we bought for $1,875, and we sold it for $86,000. Now let's compare this to the house flip that I just earlier talked about, right? Now you're looking at it, we made twice the rehabbers in this example money on that deal. The rehabber in that complicated deal where they have to have staff to find the deal, where they have to go run and meet somebody in somebody's living room and convince them that they should sell that property for $125,000. Then you have to go get the money for it. You have money from a hard money lender, sign like that stack of papers, right? Then you have to go rehab the deal with a bunch of contractors and run to Home Depot and to different design stores all day long to figure out what you're going to change where, basically a full-time job designing and supervising the crew. Then you have to hire a realtor, and in between you have to make all those monthly payments to the lender, and then you sell the property, and a 4 or 5 months period passes. In this case, we just send out some letters. We got a few phone calls. We sent out some offers. This person accepted the offer. We put it up for sale, and we sold it for $86,000. Right, making this an over $84,000 profit on that deal. And the best thing is, in that particular case, they actually gave us, it was actually a seller financing deal, and they gave us a 20% down payment. So they gave us a $17,000 down payment, which again, we paid less than $2,000 for this property. So we already had made a more than $15,000 profit on that deal. And then they start making payment of $850 a month for the next 15 years to pay this thing off. So if we add this all up together, and I got to pull up my calculator for that, what's 850 times 12 is $10,200 a year times 15 years. It's $153,000 that we receive on that property on a that we'll receive, or we still receive basically on the property over the course of the 15 years. So this is the profit, and minus $2,000 is a down payment. That's what we paid for the property. So $151,000 is the overall profit for that property. Isn't that like crazy? Isn't that like absolutely out of this world? So this is why we like land better than houses. Number one, there's no toilets, there's no tenants, there's no termites. There's no tenants, toilets, and termites, right? So that's how we usually said it. There's nothing to fix on the property, is in other words, but it really means so much more. There's no repairs, there's no mold, there's no foundation issues, there's no contractors, there's no banks involved, there's no hard money lenders involved, there's no budget overruns involved, there's no realtors involved, there's no inspectors involved. what we do is we have perfected the method of finding owners who don't want their properties anymore and making them and finding the ones that are willing to sell their properties anywhere between 5 and 25% of the market. And in some markets, you can go a little bit above that, so into the 10 to 30% range of market value. So we put these properties under contract, either buy them, take them down if you have the cash, or then once we have them under contract, we do the exact same thing that the house flippers do. We'd go flip it either with a double closing, where we put the buyer in line, we put the seller in line, and we are in the middle as the seller sells to us and we're selling to the buyer. But we're doing all these two, the selling and the selling here, the buying, let's say, from the seller to us, the purchase, and the sale from us to the buyer. We're putting those together into the title company, and you're doing both of these transactions simultaneously in the same day using the buyer's money. So that's why we can do everything that the house flippers can do. We can do assignments, right? And we can do seller financing. And the nice part is when you do seller financing with land, you're typically outside of Dodd-Frank. Like Dodd-Frank is that monster of legislation that when you do want to do seller financing real estate, you have to have people jump through hoops, and you have to make all kinds of calculations. And you have to have a mortgage originator sign for it and so on. Well, we don't have to deal with that because what we're selling is not a residence. It's not a dwelling. It's a piece of land. The other benefit that we like, there's nothing to destroy, nothing to steal, right? I invite anyone that wants to go on one of my properties and take a shovel and a bucket with you and take some of the land with you. Because we own it all, right? We own it. There's more land underneath, and if you own the land there, you own the land underneath too. So it's absolutely beautiful. Nobody can destroy it. Nobody can challenge it. And of course, when we have it under contract, we go run environmental tests and things like that. We check on environmental issues in the area and so on. So environmental issues have never been a problem in our 4,000 land flip history. So really, you can't destroy it, and therefore, so yeah, it's absolutely great. But the biggest benefit of land flipping is, particularly in this high competition world of house flipping, is that there's almost no competition. There's almost no competition. There's 3,007 counties in the United States, and there's probably right now, because we have been teaching this for 11 years, there's probably right now, or let's say 500 people that do this somewhat seriously, within 5 to 20 deals a year, something like that. That means for every person that does that, there is a total of over 6 counties that they can be the only person in that county. And yes, this has sometimes happened that 10 people are congregate in one county, and they all operate in one county. Yes, but that's 10 people in one county. Just imagine how many people are there flipping houses in your market. If you live in any kind of major city of 100,000 plus people, there are hundreds of people pursuing house flips in that market. If you live in a million people city, there's thousands of people pursuing house flips. Yet go into any of those rooms, go to any of those meetups, go to any of those RIA meetings, and if you're the land flipper, you're the only land flipper in that room. That's why we love land. That's why land is better than houses, right? You can't destroy it. You don't have to. Plus, you can buy it for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar, because our sweet spot is that land between about $5,000. I like to go a little higher than that. I no longer like to deal with the $5,000 properties, but a lot of our students do. So I like to say 10,000, but our students deal in the 5,000. So I'll give you that. So therefore, 5,000 all the way to $100,000 range. That's our sweet spot. Within that parameters of price ranges, there is the most sellers out there. They're willing to just get rid of their properties for 20, 25, 30 cents on the dollar and just not care about it, sometimes even for 10 cents on the dollar. And then you take those properties under contract. And the most beautiful part is you can actually sell with seller financing. And again, in seller financing, you ask them for a down payment. And if you do this the right way, the down payment actually is higher than what you paid for the property. So you get already as a down payment more than what you pay for the property, and then you get cash flow anytime. So it's the year 2020. This is, real estate is hot, but be really conscious and careful about which kind of real estate you go into, right? Like if you go into house flipping, be my guest, right? Go into house flipping, understand house flipping is sexy and so on, because you actually see something being built in front of your eyes that looks much prettier before than it did after than it did before. But be aware that you're going to hit your head against the wall for probably the next year and a half before you even get a first deal. Would you rather do that, or would you rather like to have your first deal perhaps in the next 6 to 8 weeks, right? So that's what we want to do. So we actually invite you in this episode of the podcast. I invite you to actually join something that we have coming up in February. So I'm going to put the link right here on the screen, and we're going to put the link in the comments, in the show notes, and under the YouTube video and so on, that you can go and actually learn more about this. We're going to do a multi-day free class about this, and you can join that. We're going to show you exactly how to do this over a course of a week, and it's free. All you need to do is you need to go and register for it. All right. So with that said, that's my podcast today. It was time to go back to the basics. It was time to talk about what is it that has enabled us to live the life of our dream. What is it that has enabled literally hundreds of our students to go be on the path to becoming millionaires? We are on a mission to create 1,000 millionaires. We have created many already, and we want you to be one of them too. So go give us a 5-star review for right now. Go look at the link here. Take down the link that's on the screen. Take down the link that's underneath here. Go there. Join us for our 5-day class, and I'm looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Enjoyed this episode? Then make sure you like, subscribe, and post your comments and questions below the video. We're looking forward to hearing from you.